Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit TRE.radio.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
It is Tuesday, the 11th of November. Welcome to Viewpoint, Talk Radio Europe's current affairs program with invited guests where we discuss the issues of the day. On today's show, well, we're going to be looking at the existential crisis within the BBC. Donald Trump apparently is going to be suing the BBC, he says, for a huge sum of money. I think it was £1 billion or something last time. Anyway, looking at that, looking at also the fallout perhaps from, if we've got time, to the election of the new mayor in New York, described by some as a communist, as having an effect on the political situation in the USA, and whatever else we decide to throw into the mix. It can be local, it can be national, it can be international. If you've got something you want to get off your chest, then these are the numbers to contact us on.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And so looking at the front pages of the paper, President Donald Trump's threat of legal action against the BBC features on most of the front pages, including The Sun, which describes Panorama's edit of his speech as the Beebs billion-dollar bungle. Trump tells BBC, grovel or I'll sue, says the Daily Mail's headline. Daily Telegraph says the extraordinary move by the US president has turned the screw on a corporation that's reeling from the resignations of the Director General and the head of news. While the iPaper says the future of the licence fee is now in jeopardy, with the BBC left weakened ahead of negotiations with the government. The Guardian claims a BBC board member with links to the Conservatives led the charge in pressuring the corporation's leadership over claims of systemic bias before Tim Davie and Deborah Turnus announced they were stepping down. Sources have told the paper that Theresa May's former Director of Communications, Sir Robbie Gibb, amplified the criticism in key meetings. Writing in The Guardian, Liberal Democrat leader Sarah Davey says Sir Robbie should be removed from the BBC board before the search begins for a new Director General. Comments to the BBC by the Chancellor, signalling she could scrap the two-child benefit cap, are highlighted in the Times. It says Rachel Reeves appeared confident of funding the move, thought to cost more than £3 billion, despite Treasury concerns that levies on gambling will not be enough. The Guardian says Reeves is hoping that removing the cap will placate many Labour MPs who are concerned about the political consequences of raising income tax. The main news for the Daily Mirror is the new interview by the Princess of Wales given to a TV channel in Brazil, in which the heir to the throne, a new interview by the Prince of Wales, in which the heir to the throne revealed that he and the Princess of Wales were honest with their children about her cancer diagnosis. Hiding stuff doesn't work. We chose to communicate a lot more, he says. The paper's leader column applauds the openness of the royal couple, noting honesty is the best policy, allowing love, patience and clarity to steady even the stormiest seas. Perhaps we'll have some love, patience and clarity on today's Viewpoint. Meanwhile, those front pages then this morning, from the top of my paper pile, is the Daily Telegraph. Trump to sue BBC for $1 billion. Trump's $1 billion battle with corrupt BBC. The Sun, Beebs billion-dollar bungle. Meanwhile, $1 billion, says the Star. Man baby may sue fricking idiots. The iPaper, future of the BBC left with the DBC licence fee in jeopardy as Trump threatens £1 billion legal action. BBC says sorry. But Trump threatens to sue for $1 billion. That's the Independent. Daily Mail. Trump tells BBC, grovel or I'll sue you for $1 billion. That is, and also why BBC suits might live to regret turning on Hurricane Deborah. Financial Times. Trump issues threat to sue BBC for more than $1 billion over edited speech. The Guardian. BBC board member with Tory link led the charge over claims of bias. The Times, BBC is told to say sorry or Trump will sue for $1 billion. You will pay the price for vicious OAP tax raid. That is the Daily Express with a warning that 160,000 signed a petition warning Labour not to target pensioner income in the budget. The Daily Mirror leads on the Prince and Princess of Wales. We told the kids everything, the good and the bad. Prince opens up on challenges of dealing of illnesses in the family. And those are your headlines on this Tuesday, the 11th of November. If you want to get involved with this morning's Viewpoint, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Right, then on the poll today, which is on the Facebook page, Talk Radio Official, I'm asking the question, do you think the BBC is institutionally biased? Because of the situation with the 2 resignations over the past 48 hours, and now President Trump threatening a $1 billion lawsuit against the corporation. At the moment, 100% say no. So let me know if you want to get involved with that poll, and let's have a look at what's happening there as well. Looking at some comments already coming in, and good morning to you on the WhatsApp. What does it mean? Was it careless to splice that speech? Yes. The overall message, however, changed what Donny meant and expressed? No. And it's curious how BBC haters don't mention the positive bias towards Uncle Nigel. Petitions don't work. Good morning. Love, clarity, and hug. Good morning, Sam. Love, clarity, hugs and kisses on Viewpoint. No. We want a big kick-off. Okay, thanks very much. Joining me in the studio, Andres Gallardo. Good morning to you, Andres.
Good morning to you.
Love, hugs, kisses, clarity, big kick-off.
Oh, no, just opinion there. Just thrown in the air and see what happens.
Like jumping jacks or something.
I just wanted to start saying that ever since I mentioned Bournemouth being second in the table, they haven't won a point since that day, and so we are back to mid-table, which I guess where we belong. But anyway, on the BBC,
I've got a call coming in straight off.
Okay.
Morning, caller. You're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's the Viewpoint, please?
Oh, yes, good morning to you, anonymous caller, but perhaps I'm too late for it being the actual Armistice Day. But if between your discussions you like to play music as you do, you might remember, and everybody, if I may call it, we'll meet again, don't know how, don't know when. And that was by, I believe, Marlene Dietrich, who many will know. Thank you so much. If it's possible to play that sometime.
Well, I don't. This is the Viewpoint, so it's a little bit of a problem because we are a sort of current affairs talk bits. But I will play at some point.
I've come in at the wrong time.
That's quite all right. And I believe it is Dame Vera Lynn as well. Marlene Dietrich was, of course, singing "Marie Marlene," which was what the German soldiers sang during the First World War. But hey, I think we should remember both sides, don't you?
Absolutely, and we'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, is very much for people's in thoughts today, I think. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Enjoy listening to your program. Wonderful.
Thank you very much for your call in. There you go. 952784000. And Andres, there you go. I mean, yes, because it is at the 11th of the 11th, at the going down of the sun, we will remember them, etc. Which is, it's Armistice Day today. It's the 11th of the 11th.
So it is, yes.
So it is.
Interesting.
Secret for Soon. If you ever get the chance to read the war poet Secret for Soon, there's a poem called Aftermath, which is absolutely brilliant on the money. Anyway, we're moving away from that, and you were saying about the BBC.
Oh yes, quite an incredible story. I mean, to the matter in question, which is this editing of the Trump speech. All I can say is that it's not other than very clumsy, to say the least. Totally unnecessary to do that kind of editing for a number of reasons. The first one that springs to mind is the fact that you play into Trump's hands by editing, and because he saw it's a big, is big claiming fake news and the media is against me and everything else, and then it goes to the BBC does that, it's just playing into his hands. That's one of the things that I can see from that.
Yeah.
It's not going to. The BBC should know that it's not going to influence what people think of Trump in favour or against. Supporters of Trump are going to continue to be supporters of Trump because he's had enough court cases and enough scandal around him, and still gets great support from his voters. So a documentary from the BBC is not going to swing anyone in favour or against.
Well, as Richard said, I mean, the editing was clumsy, because these are 2 bits of a speech, 15-minute apart. It's
clumsy. I mean,
and also, but it doesn't actually change. It doesn't actually change. Yeah, exactly, Richard. I'm about to come on to that as well, but you preempted me. It doesn't actually change what he was saying, and what he was saying, because this was the intention. And when it got to people, a lot of the people who were arrested for what happened at Capitol Hill, said they were inspired by Trump's speech to go down to Capitol Hill.
But that's not the point. The point is that you are maliciously editing something that he said with the view to influence the viewer. So there is no need for that. I mean, if you want to. If you want to sort of influence your opinion about Trump, you just need to let him speak, and he himself dig his own grave, if you like. So there was no need for that. So not only the makers of the program were clumsy, but also the directors of the service, whether it's news service or whatever the department is. They should have known that was unacceptable. It was unacceptable for the BBC.
Sloppy.
Totally sloppy. Yeah. And just let me tell you, because internationally, I know in the UK is different because you have the BBC day in, day out.
Right.
But internationally, certainly in Spain, the rest of Europe and the world, the BBC is a very, very important institution. And it was famous until today, basically, for to take an impartial view of things. I know in the UK you would say, no, they're not impartial, whatever. But the perception that we have, certainly in Spain, they were commenting on the radio yesterday, that how incredible it is, because it was a point of reference for us. If in international news, journalists in Spain would go and see what the BBC had to say, because they would consider the BBC to be the impartial fact checker that puts the news out there. So they've destroyed that. Now internationally, the BBC is not going to be as credible as it has been throughout history.
But you say that, you say that, but this incident, which is, as Richard says, took place, they've had a very, very long time to ponder. What they should have, I mean, this story broke last week with the Telegraph, and it's taken this long to go, right? And the BBC is under attack from the newspapers, from the Mail, from the Telegraph, because they all wish that they had the BBC website, for example, right, is the number one go-to source for news. Forget about what's happening, people watching Strictly Come Dancing on Ice, Bake Off, whatever. And by a long shot, that website is the number one news gathering source from people. I use it every morning, rather than that. So the Telegraph, the Mail wish that they had that sort of coverage, so they will pile on and try and attack to try and discredit the BBC.
But why give them the pleasure of having something like that, something as clumsy and sloppy as that? Just why give them the pleasure? There was no need for that, Giles.
I know that, but there's also there have been a couple of errors that have come along. So, for example, the Hamas thing, the documentary that came, and it turned out that this kid living in the war zone turned out to be the son of a high-ranking Hamas official. That's a muck-up, right? The BBC scandals, with, I don't know, Master Chef, the two, and all these sort of scandals we've had about inappropriate.
Yeah, but these are, in my opinion, they're minor scandals.
Yeah, but
that happens when you have a large organisation with a lot of people. You're going to have the odd scandal here and there because you're going to find someone
in a corporation that big.
Exactly.
But
you've got 21,000 employees there.
Right.
I'm sure you're going to find someone who's exaggerating as a rapist. That doesn't mean the whole institution is protecting that kind of behaviour. It's not. The point is that you are playing into the hands of the ones who want to to be critical with what you do. But it is true that clumsiness is now made a lot of people internationally, not so much in England, because in England they had detractors of the BBC for a long time. I mean, Boris Johnson called,
But Boris Johnson
he said, well, you're a bunch of lefties and this and that. So it's been going on for a long time. Let's not forget, the BBC was perhaps the first news body that embraced the political correctness, and that has developed into the wokeness and so on, and they've kept embracing that instead of staying impartial, and instead of saying they have been rolled into this vision of political correctness, wokeness, and all that river leads you to the sea of the left. And they should have...
The sea of the left.
The sea of the left, which is a big sea, is a notion. It's a notion. But it's true. I mean, there's no need for that.
The Red Sea, the sea of the left.
Yeah. The Dead Sea.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. But no, I mean, there was no need for that. They should have kept the reputation, because a reputation is something. I mean, if you look at different organisations like the BBC, that's why in a way I admire them. It's a public because I compare it to TV1 or TVE. Sorry, I should say. Which is the equivalent of the BBC, but in Spain. That is ridiculous. I mean.
How so? For those who don't have the pleasure of watching Spanish TV, as I do. And I still miss the Prensa Rosa on Cuatro. But anyway, go on.
Well, TV1 is just the state-owned, sort of channel, television and radio channel. But what happens here is, as soon as there is an election, the first thing when they form government is to appoint a new director of the TV1 that is in cahoots with the government. Cahoots is basically appointed by the government to sort of air the views of the government. As soon as there's a change of government, there's a change of director. It's incredible that in the BBC, the director, is it Tim Davie? The guy who's...
He was.
He was the director of the BBC with the Tories and with Labour. So it's an example of the impartiality that they could display to the world, to say, look, we don't change the director of the BBC because this is just a professional guy who does his job. So for them to have that reputation and not being able to keep it by a sloppy work of one television program regarding the thing with Trump, it's more damaging than they realise.
952. Well, if you want to get involved and get your viewpoint across, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
So, let's go to the WhatsApps. Good morning to Paul. Back in 2016, John Whittingdale was the Conservative Culture Secretary, and he changed the BBC board appointments from 25% of governors being appointed by the government to 75%, immediately giving politicians the means to pack the board with people aligned to their partisan agenda. This was prepping the ground for pro-Brexit bias. Hence, Gibgate. One of the opportunities Starmer missed when Labour got into power was Leveson 2 inquiry. Meanwhile, GB News has ongoing programmes filled with Reform UK supporters and MPs accusing the BBC of bias. Meanwhile, this is from Good Morning to Paul, another Paul. Great show as always. Thank you very much. The real problem with the BBC is that instead of representing the views of the vast majority of British people. It's Paul from the People's Republic of Manilva. The real problem within the BBC is that instead of representing the views of the vast majority of British people, it tries to influence the views of British people. Richard is absolutely on fire this morning. Not literally, but here we go. The real question is to ask why the White House took 15 months to moan about it. The original broadcast was from October 2024, and he sent me the thoughts of Lewis Goodall, a few reminders of what Trump said in the lead up to January the 6th. November the 19th, big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there, will be wild. December 26th, we will never give up. We will never concede. December the 27th, just say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. December the 30th, we're going to fight like hell. If you don't fight, you're not going to have a country anymore. December the 31st, we've won this election. They just won't want to admit it. We'll see what happens on January the 6th. People are angry. January the 3rd, they're not taking this White House. We're going to fight like hell. On the 4th, if the Democrats take control, we're going to have not going to have a country anymore. You have to get your people to fight. On the 5th, Washington is being inundated with people who don't want to see an election victory stolen. Our country has had enough. They won't take it anymore. And on January 6th itself, over roughly 70 minutes, he used the word fight, fighting, or fighters more than 20 times. The BBC Panorama edit was a mistake. It shouldn't have happened. But it is possible to think that, and to think it did not fundamentally represent Trump's overall actions in the lead up to January the 6th and on the day itself. With the BBC reeling from it, it presents I think that is for me to say. It presents an entirely false impression that Trump's false version of events is true. Do you think if wokeness is a bad thing, Andres, and if it's a state broadcaster, well then cahooting will always happen? Delighted to say we're joined by Claudia de la Torre. Claudia, good morning to you.
Good morning, Giles. Good to see you.
You too. You're looking very, very good this morning. Your thought, we're just talking about the Spanish TV broadcasting, TV Una, and how it changes and everything like that. The role of a state broadcaster, impartiality. Do you think that, President Trump yesterday was on his Truth Social saying that, BBC is basically fake news. If you're a BBC reporter in the States now, it's going to be very tricky to sort of get yourself, get any sort of story out at the moment because of the way of the reception. What are your thoughts, Claudia, on the current situation?
Well, in my opinion, I think all state broadcasters should be abolished because I don't...
Okay, fair enough.
Absolutely, because I think it's...
Yeah, go on.
It's really wrong that so much public money is pumped into these corporations that a lot of the time they have a very low ratings compared to others, and especially in the UK, I think the BBC, the license fee is absolute extortion, in my opinion. That taxpayers should have to be obliged to have a license fee to fund the BBC, which is just one media group, well, not even a media group, a state-owned corporation. I think that's completely unfair. So if they should just get their own financing, and like any other media channel, I don't understand why the taxpayers have to fund them. And in Spain, it's also a problem. We have Radio Televisión Española, which the current government has made an extra effort to colonize and to impose all the management and all the journalists on them on there are completely biased, and they have huge salaries, very biased in all matters. So yeah, I think they're useless. It's a bit like RT in Russia, not as extreme, thankfully, but it's getting close to that. Yeah.
But if you scrap the BBC and the licence fee, right? Because this is a throwback to the days of the halcyon days, the idealism that we should entertain and educate. That's one of parts of the BBC's remit. So if you go down a purely commercial route with a TV station, then you end up with a GB News situation. And the services that the BBC provides in terms of local radio, in terms of the website as we had before, in terms of these programs that the stuff like that. I mean, I know there's Strictly Come Dancing and Ice Bake Off, whatever, but there is a sort of remit and a level of local and independent programming that they wouldn't be able to do anymore, because if the funding is removed via the licence fee, then it's not commercially viable, and the BBC is a special case.
Well, I think that's life in a way. Like if you can't, it's like if a business can't provide. They should become a charity, for example, and a non-profit. The BBC could be a non-profit, and they could live off people's donations or people who decide to watch them. I'm not saying it should become a profit-making corporation. However, I just think it's unfair that you have to have a TV license even if you never watch the BBC. And in many cases, and nowadays with internet and streaming, people decide to get their news and their entertainment from Netflix, from many other sources. So I just think it's weird to be pumping in so many billions a year into a corporation which its numbers have gone down dramatically in the past few decades.
I think we've gone from talking about the sloppy editing of a program that played into the hands of Donald Trump into the existential life of
the word I was about to use there, that stole my existential threat to the BBC.
So that they're different issues. I think there is a need for unlike Claudio here, I think there is a need for a state-owned sort of news provider. But there has to be an extra effort on making sure that, because they are public funds that we're using to finance these bodies, they have to have extra careful to be completely unbiased. And that's very, very difficult in today's world. But if we're going to put taxpayers' money, which is from everyone's money, it has to be for everyone, not just for a section of the public to enjoy what happens there, and for the other section, like myself, being angry every time you turn on the telly. With the BBC, the issue of the license fee is a different one, because as a taxpayer, you in effect you're already funding the provision of the BBC as a corporation. To have an extra fee that you have to pay to watch it is where I don't agree. You're already paying for it with your everyday tax. Why do you have to pay an extra? I mean, I don't think any other countries have got anything like that. Of course, if you go on to the private sector can be owned by anyone who has got an editorial line that they want to have, and you can't stop them from that, because they got their own money, is their own thing, and they can say whatever they want, as they should in a free society. That's why I think there is a need for a neutral provider of programming and information and news and everything else that is completely, sort of unbiased. Now, as I said just a minute ago, that I know is very, very difficult to achieve, because everybody's got an opinion. I mean, you've got the BBC, for instance, when Gary Lineker was criticised for airing his views, and people say you should stick to talking about football. Well, yes, because the program is about football, but in your private life, you do have an opinion, and you should be free to air it, whether you like it or not. But that is when, you start entering into a grey area on, sort of, is that unbiased, is that biased, is that,
This is in from Liz in Brighton. Good morning to you. Hi there. My understanding of the BBC fuss is these programmes were made by people other than the BBC, and they simply broadcast them. Maybe they should have reviewed them in detail instead of just a synopsis. The same could be levelled at all media broadcasters, surely. Thanks very much for that. If you want to get your viewpoint across, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Viewpoint with Giles Brown.
Always lively. Joined in the studio by Andres Gallardo and Claudia de la Torre. We're talking BBC. This stuff coming in. This is coming in quite lively this morning. If you wish to get your viewpoint across, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Richard comes in saying, low ratings. RTVE have won awards recently. Germany charge €18.36 a month, regardless of actual TV ownership. That's €220 a year. And a German TV license is required. Switzerland is Swiss francs, 335. Ireland, €160 a year. Austria, 15.30 per month, regardless of actual TV ownership. Okay, so they sent me something on the German TV tax, and also the BBC do not invoice people. TV license does and doesn't solely fund the BBC. Meanwhile, the BBC's been caught out pulling the wool over our eyes. That polar bear birth documentary was a right old sham. I know nothing about this. The birth itself was filmed at a zoo. The rest of the filming they could have just been honest about it. Okay, fine. I didn't think we'd go down the birthing a polar bear situation, but there you go. Donald Trump. Not birthing, but the thing is, somebody said to me the other day, I heard a podcast the other day saying, well, Donald Trump he's now sued. He sued CBS, he sued ABC, they've settled out of court, Washington Post settled out of court. The only one who hasn't settled out has been Murdoch. He's taking on Murdoch, hasn't he, because of his situation. So, if there's one thing that Donald Trump does like to do, President Trump, is to fire off I'm going to sue you warning. Claudia, you're grinning gnomically, agnostically even at me. You're not in cahoots. What do Donald Trump.
Let's just hope he doesn't sue us. We just have to cross our fingers.
Well, no, exactly. Sue me personally, and then take all my worldly goods and chattels, which is basically a very small cafe, a very small coffee mug. But anyway, moving swiftly onwards. People will be saying, Boris Johnson gets involved going on about accountability. At which point I have to stick my tongue so far in my cheek. It's making me look like the Elephant Man. And then Donald Trump and Nigel Farage gets involved, and obviously he's got the GB News TV program, as has Rees-Mogg, and now the President of the United States gets involved, saying, well done to the Daily Telegraph, and all the BBC is fake news and whatever. And then he's going to sue it for $1 billion to misquote Austin Powers. Your thoughts? Is this just Trump having one of his I'm going to sue everybody on the planet situations?
Well, this is a great opportunity for him to push his rhetoric of the fake news media and the manipulation, something that he's been talking about for over a decade. So this is a golden opportunity for him, which he's not going to let it go, because he's been always said that the news were biased against him, that they manipulated a lot of what he said. And I think to some extent it is true, not completely, but that the mainstream media, as he calls it, the legacy media, I think in some ways they have been been biased on certain things, but not to the extent that he likes to play the victim also a lot. That's part of his agenda, the victimization, and that he's a victim of so many different people. And so, but I do think the news needs to be held accountable, and it often doesn't, especially when it's public funded, because same as I think like the Trumpist movement, they have created fake news themselves and conspiracies, and I think like if that needs to be held accountable. But I think the media, when they do things that are unethical, they should also be held accountable. And when it's a corporation like the BBC, well, the standards should be a lot higher. Yes. And the BBC has had controversies also, like the Martin Bashir interview. Over the years, there's been lots of Gary Lineker one. It just seems that it's a long list of controversies that have been happening for many years. So I do think it's obviously going to cause debate, and I think that the taxpayers do feel frustrated that they are funding the BBC. The last TV license revenue was over $3.5 billion for the last year, which is a lot of money, especially in these times of fiscal austerity, where they're saying, oh, where should we cut? I'm not saying that they should completely cut their budget, but definitely reduce it to and allow advertising. Why shouldn't they receive advertising as a registered charity? I'm not saying that they should be shareholders, but get revenue from other sources that are not only the taxpayer. I think that wouldn't be a bad idea. Like it was like that in Spain. They abolished advertisement on Radio Televisión Española, and before it was a mixed system where it was partly funded by the government and partly funded by advertisers, which I think wasn't bad. And now it's purely funded by the government, so there's no there's no revenue from any other sources. So I do think, again, that people should have a say. I just feel like it's just so many things that people don't have a say about, that the taxpayer, I just think, is just treated like a cash cow, and they're just being milked by so many different corporations and organizations and quangos, and they have absolutely no say in where the money goes. So I really do think that the taxpayers, we should have a say on where our tax money goes.
You had that look on your face, Andres.
I was going to say, moo.
Yes.
Just going quickly back to Trump and his cases against different media outlets. Of course, they are not. To me, they're not as relevant as the BBC blunder, because these are private news corporations that he's suing for whatever reason. I mean, of course they are on these opposite side of the political spectrum. You've got New York Times or the CNN or whoever. Of course they're going to be in opposition of the Republican outlets and so on. The problem with this particular case is that we're talking about the BBC, which is the lighthouse of impartiality around the world, or it has been until recently, and that's why I think it's a more grave case of fake news, which is what is in effect what it was, and it's, as I said very early in the program, plays into the hands of Donald Trump, saying, you see, I was right, there's fake news everywhere, including the BBC, which is, I think that's what makes it even worse than what already is, and as I said before, I mean, Donald Trump, you just need to let him talk and he will dig himself into the grave.
952-78-4000 is the phone number if you want to get involved. Going to the WhatsApps again, and they are as follows. You mean KGB news? Buses against the Oompa Loompa who lie 15 times a day on average. Behave, Claudio. Fiscal authority. Lol. What planet is Claudio on? Claudio doesn't want to be milked. Just wait for the Vox farmer to show up and I'll use him for meat, quote unquote. That's a worrying. Yes, I know. That's an interesting one. Anyway, moving swiftly onwards. We've already had that one as well. This one came in from Gordon, who says, The BBC, right? Although they talk a good game when it comes to impartiality, the BBC is never willing to sack anyone who lets licence fee payers down. And so the culture that led to faking Donald Trump's words, regurgitating Hamas propaganda, and censoring coverage of the transgender debate has gone unchecked. BBC and Mrs. Davis' biggest weakness is he's got no background in news. The board would well to pick someone who has a journalistic background and has the guts to fire people if they ignore the founding principles. If this proves impossible and the job's too big for one person, they might have to consider something more radical, like restructuring the corporation. To the lines we go. Morning, caller. You're live on TRE. What's your name? Where you come? What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
It's Gil from Carlton.
Morning, Gil.
In my opinion, we should scrap the BBC. Why do we need the BBC? We've got Sky News, got GB News, and if the BBC is scrapped, something else will come to replace it. I think it's biased. I mean, I've been listening to the BBC all my life. Certainly I know a lot about the Middle East, as you know, and I can say that they're very biased and they say many things which are completely wrong. I mean, for instance, on the Middle East, I don't mind if they say the West Bank are not Judea and Samaria, or if they say it's occupied territory where you could debate whether it's occupied or not occupied, yeah? But one thing that they say all the time, which is a complete lie, is to say that it's forbidden according to international law to build on occupied land. Well, apparently there's no such thing. I mean, I've been searching all my life the international law and everything written about it, and there is not one place that it says you're not supposed to build on occupied territories or anything that even resembles that. And yet they repeat it all the time. Jeremy Bowen repeats it all the time, the BBC. So does Christiane Amanpour on CNN. I mean, they're not the only one. Yeah, and this is just one example for many things. And yes, I can see the people saying, well, we want something which is, neutral and so on, but it hasn't worked.
It hasn't worked. What about the sort of classical music programs and like I said, the community program that they do and, the radio and all that sort of stuff, Gil?
I think some things will be replaced by the private sector and some things will not. I mean, that is unfortunate. That's part of life, if there's not too much demand. Certain things are just too expensive, but I think that certain things will be replaced once you save the money from paying all this budget for the BBC.
Yeah, I've got some more calls coming in, but thank you so much for your time. Good to hear from you, my friend, as always. Morning, caller. You're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Yeah, good morning, guys. It's John in Rehab.
Morning, John.
Turned on, but I was in time to hear, was it Gil?
It was indeed.
That, we could abolish the BBC because they're biased. Well, and we could listen to Sky and GBN and what. Aren't they particularly biased too?
Well, I mean, everybody's biased, aren't they? I mean, you can't completely. I mean, believe it or not. I mean, I have been accused of being biased on this very program. I mean, I know it's hard to believe, and the panel looking askance at me because they can't believe it either. Stop that.
But, I mean, if Gil doesn't want to listen to BBC because it's biased. What's the opposite? Listening to the other programs, which are like 10 times more biased. Yeah. So if you're going to listen to them, you have to listen to the BBC and take some of it with a pinch of salt because it's not 100% correct or they got it a bit wrong.
I mean, I don't listen to Radio 1 because the music's rubbish, but it doesn't mean I think it should be taken off the air.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, guys, I don't listen to music programs, so I hate music, but there you go.
Well, listen, thanks very much for that call in.
Yeah, I think we have to make a distinction here between the reputation that the BBC has got worldwide of impartiality to the reality of the people who consume BBC programs on a daily basis. Because if you do it on a daily basis, you will find holes. Your caller there mentioned Jeremy Bowen, for instance.
Yes.
So during the 1990s, that was the voice and the opinion of the Middle East in Britain. and whatever he said is what people sort of would believe. And I used to pick up a lot of holes in his stories when he would tell the stories, and realize that you cannot be impartial 100% of the time. It's very, very difficult. But I still believe that there is a need for corporations like the BBC to try to attain complete impartiality, so people can enjoy receiving facts and making their own opinion on their own, rather than being told what you should think, which is what happens in the private sector. I mean, we see it in Spain in different channels. You see it in the UK. I mean, GB News that you mentioned earlier, of course, is completely biased. It's tiring. I've watched it on a couple of occasions, and I find it tiring that they go on and on and on. But you have the same here in Spain, a channel called La Sexta that is so biased that is sickening. In the end, you're tired of only listening to the same opinion, and they go on and on. They're like vultures, with the subject. And it's nice to have something a little bit more balanced where the one who does the thinking is the viewer, not the one who delivers the news.
9527840. A quick break and then back to the last 5 minutes of the first half of this morning's Viewpoint.
Viewpoint with Giles Brown.
Always live, always lively, saving the world's problems one at a time, or something like that. Right then, looking at some of the, that's a worrying concept, some of the stuff coming in. How can anyone, indeed, we're talking about BBC, and this is from, it's from F-Face, okay. How can anybody, sounds like Mark begins with F. How can anyone trust a corporation that potentially hid the habits of Jimmy Savile for decades? Okay, fair enough, that's a Jimmy Savile bingo card. Okay, this is in from Don, who says, Televisión, thank you very much. Televisión Española es una corporación de radio y televisión pública española, pero no se fundía únicamente por el Estado, okay? So you know that for a start. He said, Televisión Española es una corporación de radio y televisión pública española, pero no se fue fundida únicamente por el Estado.
Really?
This is what this guy is saying.
Okay.
And also, TV se creó en 1957 como un organismo estatal. Is that correct? Pero en 2006 se transformó en una corporación pública, lo que le dio más autonomía. Aunque un Estado español es una principal accionista, debe seguir por un modelo de gestión más independiente.
Yeah, that's probably the theory, but the practice is not like that.
Right.
He's saying that it's just an independent body, partially funded by the state, but not exclusively. That's the translation of what the text that you just read. The reality is it is controlled by the state, it's controlled by the government. The directors are appointed by the government, and the information that goes out is always in favor of the government and against the opposition openly, and without any, they don't even try to hide it. It's just completely open, and they are they're misleading, and they are. They have. I'll just give you an example.
Please do.
With the crisis we have in Andalusia in the hospital, with the checkups for breast cancer, okay, they had someone on TV. With a white coat, pretending to be a doctor, saying that was really bad and it was really badly organized and it is terrible how it's been mismanaged from the regional government and everything else, regional government being conservative. It only turns out to be that the woman with the white coat wasn't a doctor, he was a cook of one of the hospitals. So this is how they manipulate news openly without even hiding. So I know that the theory is that it's an independent corporation, semi-funded, blah, blah. The reality out there, if you put on the telly, is that it's pure propaganda currently of the Socialist Party, but previously, when the Conservative government was in power, it was a channel for the propaganda of the Conservative Party. So whoever is in power controls the TV in Spain, full stop. You can't just hide that. That's a fact, that's reality.
And we can't forget that there's also 17 other regional televisions, which is scandalous, apart from Radio Canal Sur, Telemadrid, etc., again, with their high-paid directors, with big budgets, with radio stations. So
no audience.
No audience. So we're talking about a huge propaganda machine funded by the taxpayer and in all the regions. So it's quite unacceptable in my opinion.
952-78-4000 is the phone number. studio@tre.radio is the email. If you want to get involved, you can WhatsApp me +34 645 9967 95, or you can get in touch with me any way you want to. Just looking at some of the other bits and pieces coming in at the moment. I'm looking at what we have coming in, and they say as follows: the poll. Let's have a look at the poll. Do you think the BBC is institutionally biased? 62% say no, 38% say yes. So there we have the poll. If you want to get involved with that, that's on Talk Radio Europe Official. Meanwhile, some other bits and pieces just coming in very quickly. Not hard to see. Oh, yes. Thank you. Somebody said, because we were speaking in Spanish, somebody's gone, Scorchio, if you remember that from the... Was that from the Fart show, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was... Scorchio, the TV. It was the football manager, wasn't it?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Scorchio, thank you very much for that. I will come on to some more bits and pieces like that, because we have going to the international news. I'm not sure if we're going to be observing the 2-minute silence as well at our Mr. State. No, it's programmed in. That's what I'm saying. So,
we see.
Yes, you see. No, it's not me because of the way that things are. Because it is the 11th. This will be the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, which is on Remembrance on Mr. Day today. So, but next we go to the national and international news here on TRE Talk Radio, your voice in Spain. Live until 12 o'clock. Stephen Ritson joins us, of course, for Europe Today between 12 and 2. We've got a best of Selena. Selena's still unwell, but Hannah will be with us from 4 until 6. But news up next, and then back with more Viewpoint.
You're listening to Talk Radio Europe. Viewpoint is brought to you by Iberian Tax. Need help with your non-resident property tax returns? Iberian Tax are here to help. Sign up for your free account today at iberiantax.com.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment. Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
Always live, always lively. Let's kick off with straight in, because if you heard that last news item, and the panel didn't, so I'll explain it. Serial Guinness World Record breaker David Rush appeared on Spanish TV over the weekend. Are you both listening? Yeah, that's good, jolly good. Appeared on Spanish TV over the weekend, and captured the title for the most cucumbers snapped in 30 seconds. Rush, who holds more than 300 world record titles, travelled to Spain to appear on the popular TV series The Anthill, which in Spanish is... La Hormigón, is that the...
La Hormiga?
That's the one, yeah. The Anthill, to break a Guinness World Record item in the name of science. He managed to snap 65 cucumbers in half in 30 seconds. Celebrated, obliterating the previous record of 50. And this is, I know you're all rapt attention for this one, but this is, Paul says, blimey, that news item that Bob James just read, which is, I just said it now, read out, snapping cucumbers in half on Spanish TV. Now that deserves a license fee on its own. Not. Next week he will insert said cucumbers up his, moving swiftly onwards. That's from somebody else now. Looking at, so So we're talking about the BBC just quickly, and I'm joined in the studio, by the way, by Andres Gallardo and Claudio de la Torre. Everybody's got a good reputation until they don't anymore. Thank you very much indeed. Somebody sent me a WhatsApp message. It's been deleted.
That's worth mentioning.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning. I was halfway through. Many of the Spanish regional TV networks are private, not public. So those are
fake.
Sorry,
fake. No, the regional televisions are managed by the regional governments.
Right, okay. And also, thank you, yes, of course, it's 10 a.m. in London. So it's 11 o'clock, it won't be our o'clock, it'll be our 12 o'clock that the silence is held. So those are the stories on that one. That's the latest news on that one. Going to our poll today to see, we're asking the question, is the BBC institutionally biased? And the reaction to that is 65% say it isn't, 35% say it is. Richard's coming in. Not fake, I've checked. Okay, thank you very much indeed. We'll move away from the BBC, shall we? For a moment.
Why not?
Do you want to talk about Sarkozy?
Sarkozy is a good one.
Sorry. Nicolas Sarkozy, who was jailed and then he wasn't. So what's the latest that you... this is the former French Prime Minister. Is this corruption? This is... explain a little bit about...
President.
Right, okay. I'm not up to I'm not up to date on French politics, I'm afraid, but you two are. So come on.
Well,
give me the 101.
Maybe the politics. I don't know.
I'm president. Why is he in the slammer or not?
Not sure about the legal system. Well, everyone knows he was sentenced to a 5-year prison sentence. He entered prison 3 weeks ago. Reports were in the last few days that he didn't like it there, and he was very depressed and upset. That's what prisons do to you. So if anyone there is thinking of committing a crime, remember that in prison things are not nice. Yeah. The surprise to everyone is that 3 weeks after he went in, he's come out.
Yeah.
So basically, the headlines and the perception that we all have is that it's probably a bit of a joke to have a 5-year prison sentence and come out after 3 weeks.
But
there is a but to that.
Yeah.
I mean, in the legal process in France, if you lodge an appeal, even if you're in jail, you can wait for the result of the appeal sort of outside jail. His movements are controlled by the court. He's got some limitations, so he cannot do. He cannot leave the country. He has to report regularly to the court and everything else. He's not completely free, but he's at home. So waiting for the outcome of the appeal. That's my understanding. If someone knows more about French law, here are the numbers.
And lately, just around a week ago, ex-president of Colombia, Álvaro Uribe, also was, he was acquitted of a crime that he had supposedly committed. He wasn't in jail, but he was in house arrest. So yeah, it's just further courts have decided that it can happen here in Spain also with if the Supreme Court condemns you, then the Constitutional Court can either they can't dictate that you go on bail, but they can annul the sentence. So basically it's just a higher instance.
Let me just correct on that, because the Constitutional Court don't enter into what the Supreme Court does. The Constitutional Court would enter only if your basic rights have not been taken into account when sentenced.
Yes, they can correct the Constitution.
Only if they can see
the
constitutional rights and the basic rights and everything else. They cannot say to a murderer. The Constitutional Court cannot say anything about it. They can say they're innocent. It's only if there is a case for the rights not to have been.
But there's a lot of rights that can be alleged that have been of the whole criminal process, which unfortunately that's what they're doing now, is that the Constitutional Court is acting like as a higher court of and correcting the Supreme Court, which is dangerous again because the Constitutional Court is politicized.
But just look at this situation. We've got the case of Sarkozy. 5-year sentence, goes to prison, 3 weeks now. He's on what we would call house arrest, right? We've got Uribe in Colombia, a similar situation. He is condemned by the court, sentenced by the court, house arrest is more or less okay. I don't know if you remember our good friend Berlusconi. Berlusconi was also sentenced to a long prison sentence, but he stayed at home. And if he said something like, "In which one of my 5 homes will I have a house arrest?" But so the perception that we all have out there is that if you are a high-ranking politician and you get into trouble, the law doesn't somehow quite apply to you. No. And that creates mistrust in the justice system, creates mistrust in the politicians. Basically, it makes a mockery out of the system that we all believe in. So it's not good for public opinion to have situations like Berlusconi, Uribe, now Sarkozy, and the others that will come. Not
also, another consideration, it's dignitaries from all around the world being kept in prison for long periods of times, except in dictatorships, never really happens. Whether it's in Latin America with Lula or the presidents in Peru, many have been put in jail. They usually, after a year or two, get put out. The only presidents former presidents or political leaders being put in prison for a long time is in dictatorships, but in democracies it's been very rare for it to happen. And also the security nightmare of having a former president in jail is terrible. Imagine Sarkozy in La Santé prison.
Well,
he
was in isolation. I mean, he was placed in isolation with 2 guards outside his cell.
Of course, but then they circulated videos of the inmates screaming at him from the. So it's a very complicated situation unless they had an actual VIP prison for politicians isolated from the mere mortals. It always is complicated.
On one side, we've got these politicians that they seem to be getting away with crimes they've committed, and in other dictatorships, they just fall off the window.
Now,
tragically,
Sarkozy had a toilet, a shower, a desk, a small electric hob, and a small TV for which he paid a monthly fee of €14. And the right to a small fridge. So there you go. I think, but he said, I mean, he was. I think he was convicted as well for. He had a conviction last December for trying to bribe a magistrate, and he had to wear one of the electric tags around his ankle as well, which is a bit demeaning. But he was the first president to be held in a jail in France since Pétain, who was, of course, the Vichy government.
The Vichy government, yeah that's right. But the problem with these is the perception, and you just like I said before, you lose all faith in the justice system when you see these things, and we really have the last bastion of decency in the justice system, really, and if that fails, the whole organization of our Western world falls apart because you've got
because of diminutive French ex-president has been told to stay at home with his ex-model wife.
I mean, you got the executive power, legislative power, and the justice power. The previous 2 are controlled by politicians, and the third one is controlled by the judges. And
but don't forget, they say that laws are made by criminals for criminals in a way.
Well,
and we could say the government is the biggest organized crime group worldwide, the state and the government.
And the biggest example of the laws made by criminals for themselves is the amnesty that was approved, and it was designed by the people who assaulted the Spanish Constitution in 2017 in Catalonia. They presented this law to exonerate them, and it was passed. So we have a law designed and passed by the criminals who committed the crime, the politicians. So there you go. So I think he is right.
Claudio, you have to leave us.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and thank you to everyone for listening.
Good to see you again, Claudio. Sorry, thanks for dropping by. He's got a very strong handshake, especially when you're not expecting it. Thanks for dropping by, Claudio. Yes. Take a quick break and then back with more Viewpoint.
Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
Yes, indeed. Silvio Berlusconi stayed at home mainly because of his age. What Andres means that the law doesn't apply to rich people. Andres, note to self, never has. And Carlo Torre was kind enough to honor with his presence. So yes, we haven't docked his 50% fee, but thanks for letting us that one, Richard. Meanwhile, back to the burning topic of world records. We've started something with this cucumber debate. Okay. Yeah, so brace yourselves. Blunt expression. Mercadona online app, other supermarkets are available, has more than one cucumber type. What size was the cucumber? Because the Dutch cucumber is particularly is 425 grams approximately, whereas the average, the everyday cucumber, the honest Spanish cucumber, is in at 200 grams approximately. So
there you go.
Do we have a pepino, Paul?
Yeah. I didn't know that pepinos would make it in the program today.
That's one of the great things. We go from Sarkozy to pepinos in one foul swoop. Meanwhile, looking at the poll that we are running, asking if you think the BBC is institutionally biased. I'm looking at some of the bits and pieces here. 34% of you think it is. 66% of you think that it isn't. This coming in, this is a quick one on the BBC, saying, nowhere, this is John, nowhere in the hysterical pylon against the BBC in the British press has anyone mentioned that the BBC News now has 77 million viewers and listeners in the US and has established itself as the second most trusted news source there. Meanwhile, this has come in from Walter, who says there are actual issues at stake. The BBC was signposting parents and children to an organisation that was training the NHS to practice. This was the puberty blockers scandal, of course, that we had, and the success of BBC News on radio, television, and online is not in doubt. But the creativity within certain news programmes has challenged its reputation. Programmes pursuing certain agendas listed in an internal report they tried to hide, of which there is no excuse. So those are your thoughts on, those are some of the thoughts coming in at the moment on that one. 952 78 4000 is the phone number. Studio at TRE.radio is the email. The Facebook page is Talk Radio Official. You can WhatsApp me on +34 645 99 67 95. Just to let you know what's coming up today on TRE. Well, following this show, Stephen Ritson will be with us with Europe Today. Quite a lot, I imagine, to discuss with him today, as always. Selena is still unwell. So we'll be doing a best of lifestyle show, including so we'll be doing a best of her lifestyle show, and then the TRE in the afternoon between 4 and 6 with Hannah Murray, very much live. She will be talking to, well, I was going to talk about, but we're going to go live to the lines one more time because the phones just have gone off again. Morning, calling live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, over a metre long. That's my mate's cucumber that he grew in Benamadna. Morning, Giles. I'm just dipping in and out of the show because I'm just come out of a Armistice Day ceremony in Benamadna. But yes, over a metre, 3 metres long, and he even had the pictures to prove it. But that's neither here nor there. The reason I'm phoning in for is good on old Trumpy for holding the BBC to account, because you're never going to get the balance right. It's all a question of perception. But when people change facts and start chopping and changing, it's called propaganda. I suppose we've all done it, but when it's as blatant as that, then it needs to be called out, as my daughter says, called out. But I doubt if the BBC's even got $1 billion or £1 billion, have they?
I wouldn't know for that one. I'm sure they got something knocking around in the back coffers, and the real estate itself must be worth something. But it's a threat, isn't it, at the moment? And he's good at sort of shaking it up a little bit, you say, and putting they don't like him up 'em, as the saying goes, Gary.
Well, this is as Clive done. You say they don't look it up 'em, but slightly off at a tangent. I was listening to an interview on the BBC World Service the other night via the good offices of TRE, of course, during the night. The world is going to hell in a handcut, and AI is going to kill mankind, and that is from Geoffrey Hinton, the man that actually invented AI. So,
thank you. Well, thank you. In the run-up to Christmas, I think that's the sort of message we need to hear from you, Gary.
Yeah, I was going to say that's it. Myself, I'm hoping to grow a cucumber over 1.5 meters long. But again, that's neither here nor there.
Right,
anyway,
yes.
I wish you all the best. Ta-da.
Thank you, Gary, of course, regular caller in there. Yes. We're a broad church here at TRE, Talk Radio.
Cucumber, did you say?
Should we get off the cucumbers? Can we get off the cucumbers? All right. Bob James has got a lot to answer for. If you wish to talk about anything that's not cucumber related.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Yeah, indeed. Yes, indeed. Right, let's have a look at some of the stuff coming in on the WhatsApps. BBC budget is 3.5 billion GDP. Thank you. Any topic could be an agenda. Viewpoint agenda this morning is to slate the BBC, for example. And besides the general time limit for defamation across the UK, and besides the general time limit for defamation actions in the UK is 1 year. The 1 year can be extended by court in exceptional circumstances. Seeing as he pardoned January 6 rioters, the risk of significant damage to his reputation is roughly nil. Thank you for that. To the poll we go. Seeing what's coming in on the polls. Just looking at seeing what's coming in on the poll we're running. Do we think the BBC is institutionally biased? 34% say no, yes, and 66% say no. So that's the voting at the moment. We've done with the French President Sarkozy, but this was an interesting one over in the States, New York. The mayor elections of New York. This was the Mamdani victory, of course, which is the victory of an immigrant of Ugandan Asians, which, of course, Priti Patel is a Ugandan Asian. Yeah. Or the child of Ugandan Asians, of course. They were kicked out.
I take your word for that. I didn't know.
Yeah. By Idi Amin, kicked them out, as did what's his face from the Kenyan Ugandans. This was a thing in the 70s. And anyway. So, Mandami, Zohan Mandani, this is really funny because last year he put a selfie of himself on the street saying, I want to talk about people about politics. He was sitting there sort of all very, very sort of on his own on a windswept New York street, and then he gets voted in. People said he energized New York City. His alternative was the flawed, compromised Andrew Cuomo. Mandami says it offered hope to a deeply liberal city that's lost in quote-unquote Trump world. Trump endorsed Cuomo not because he agreed with Mandami's own tagline, I'm Trump's worst enemy. Trump endorsed Cuomo because he knew that it would probably increase Mandami's share of votes. Because Trump, I think you could say that Mandami is the perfect foil for Trump. He wants to... The Mandami's sort of, he wants free transport for New Yorkers. He wants affordable housing for New Yorkers.
Yes.
Healthcare for New Yorkers.
Yes.
I mean, that's to the American population is nothing short of basically Brezhnev era Soviet bloc politics.
I wouldn't take it that far.
I mean, I quite like to see this on the Costa del Sol, to be honest with you.
The first thing is we need to separate New York from the rest of the states. I mean, the city of New York is very...
I've got a call coming in on this one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah? Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Good morning, Giles. It's Alf.
Morning, Alf.
As you well know.
I'm just trying to build a little bit of suspense and just to see Andres' face. Really.
Absolutely.
It's worth the price of entrance alone. Now, free school meals, free transport, housing caps.
This is all this fake news that you keep giving out.
I'm over to New York, the People's Republic of New York, Alf. I mean, join me
no, People's Republic of Newham in England. It's always been.
The only living boy in New Cross. Yeah, go on, right then.
60-0, that's all.
Right,
so remember, 60 Labour councillors.
What's your viewpoint, Alf?
So, you were saying about the Uganda and Rhodesia. It didn't happen in the 70s. It happened in the 60s.
So Enoch Powell, etc. Yeah, Rivers of Blood.
Yeah, well, it was actually early 60s before I went to secondary school, but it wasn't really heard of. And you have to be careful when you say about who was thrown out, because it's pretty pertinent. There were a number of people from both Rhodesia and Uganda who were technically thrown out.
Was it Kenya? No, was it Kenya or was it Rhodesia?
Well,
I think it might have been Kenya. But
all of them. Remember there was Uganda, Kenya and Tanganyika. Were the three. Yeah. And then Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. But it was all about white farmers and all of that. It was all the same stuff, wasn't it? It was black indigenous people saying we want our country back. You know, you don't even need to argue about that. That's just a fact of where it started and where it came from. South Africa, another example. So what happens is that the indigenous people have to understand that Uganda is in the middle of Africa. Patel, I think, is an Indian name, if I'm not mistaken, certainly an Asian name. You go, so how are they? Well, because Idi Amin was arguing, they were like the Jews of, they owned everything. So there was this anti-Asian. Many of these people, remember, weren't thrown out. They were not refugees. They were rich people who took their money out of, especially Uganda with Idi Amin, and they came to the UK because they'd all been employed by British companies
hang on.
in Africa.
If you're kicked out of a country, it doesn't matter how much you've got in your bank balance, you've still been kicked out. So you're technically a refugee.
No, they weren't kicked out. They may have been forced out by circumstances, and a number of them were looking at the writing.
That's being kicked out.
Kick him out.
No.
It's
they were looking at the writing.
A revolution in Iran. The people who
I sat next to one of the first. Everybody says, oh, it's 1960 this and that. I sat next to one of the first ones who came over. They were richer than what I ever knew. He used to walk into school with a pocket full of, if you can remember the old half a crown, he used to have about 20 of them in his pockets. You think, what's he doing there? Yeah. They were rich people. All right, yes, they were escaping from Idi Amin and what the future held for them, but they were all British passport holders. They worked for the railways. They worked for British companies in Africa. They were taken from India. Not taken. They were enticed out of India to Africa to build the what's it called, the North East African Railway.
The Asians were the Indians. With its Indian time, they were to provide the middle class, weren't they? Between the ruling British class and the indigenous people of Africa themselves. So that was why, like Gandhi was in South Africa, they were clerks. They were the people who made the trains run on time, etc., etc.
Well, no, actually in Africa they owned most of every business that was going. For example, in Uganda, as near as Damia, was owned by an Asian. This was what the hatred was about, the black population. And it was never, in Uganda, it wasn't about the white farmers, because Idi Amin knew how to deal with them. We just take your land away. That's it. Same as what they were doing, Mugabe was doing before he was president. And I remember you used to have that woman on who was the journalist, and she said how wonderful it all was there, and how it's like you must be mad. And I'm just trying to remember, 1965, I sat next to, like I say, one of the first of the Asians who came out, where he wore a turban. He was distinctly. And you say, oh, well, Pretty Patel, she's the dog. And you go, no, she was from a rich family, as I understand it, and they escaped. Yes, of course, They weren't thrown out, but they were forced out. They were forced out by circumstances.
1972, here we go. Ugandan President Idi Amin ordered the expulsion of all South Asians from Uganda with only 90 days to leave the country.
Correct. What year?
72.
I sat next to some of them, one of them, specifically, in 1965.
Yeah.
Okay? It was started in the early 60s, and these people were leaving in their droves.
Yeah.
And they could come into the UK. It wasn't so they weren't, we'll go there and then we'll seek nationality. No, they were already British passport holders. They'd earned their passports from when they worked on the railways, mainly, in India. Nothing to do with Africa, and the passports were passed down, through the family, from sons to daughters to, all that. So we shouldn't have this understood. The ones in 72 who were technically thrown out were the ones who didn't have passports, who were the ones who didn't have any money. They were the refugees. They were the ones who then came to the UK, where the UK technically had to take them, and a lot of them never came to the UK. A lot of them went to Australia and to Canada.
Yeah.
So, Priti Patel, I don't think, as far as I know, was one of those refugees. I don't think she was part of a family that was thrown out. They left because circumstances said, if you don't leave, we'll take all your land and all your money and all your businesses and all that. And they got out while the going was good. So, let's not have this mistaken identity about the history of Africa. And what Idi Amin was doing, you could put down to probably any African leader in any African country where they were trying to get rid of the Brits.
He said he had a vision of God. God had told him to do that, which is obviously... That's a true story.
They can make it all Mugabe.
No,
Mugabe originally came from Yorkshire. If you spell his name backwards...
Yes, very good indeed. Yeah.
So,
just quickly, whilst you're on BBC, biased,
yes.
Unbiased, not biased... do you think they are pushing the left? You would know, Alf, obviously, because you're in constant touch with the BBC board of directors. I mean, advising them on their policies. I mean,
as a union official, I used to cover some of the cameramen. I'm not sure that's quite the same, but I'll tell you what I think is the problem with the BBC. It's not a problem with the BBC. I absolutely think, and it's not about state-run. The one thing you can't accuse the BBC of is being, this is a state-run organisation that's for the state. That's just so way off kilter. However, what they suffer from is that the country, the people in the UK, and probably worldwide, one, they want the business, they want the news service, not the opinion of news. The news, a bomb went off somewhere is news. It's not, we think a bomb went off. We think it killed 2 people. It's about factual news, which is what the World News Service is, isn't it? And always has been, which is why people do it. But in the UK, it's because of the breadth of the programs that they produce and where they put the money. And if it disappeared, much of that would disappear with it. So what I have is this massive program of programs that then distorts away from the news bit, because the news bit is, as far as the British public are concerned, it's just one little bit. The news is on at 10 o'clock, the news is on at 5 o'clock, the news is on at 8 o'clock. For the rest of the time, people are watching programs that are made by the BBC, which they love. Strictly Come Dance, I don't even watch that.
BBC we're media partners of the BBC World Service, and that provides, you might say, I don't give a flying fig what's happening, with the elections in Zimbabwe, but there are people out there, or the sports programme are saying, the John from Nigeria is a rabid Arsenal fan. Pity the poor fellow. But I mean, you know, but that is exactly. But that is that, you know, you can pick up the BBC World Service not only via our own excellent app, obviously, but also you know, if you're listening on radio somewhere, and it is. I mean, the Voice of America is being canned by Trump. I mean, for goodness sake, it provides people going, oh well, it's you know, it's full of paedophiles and it's got the sort of things on it, and it's you know, they are literally, and here comes the cliche, baby bathwater to throw out with. Because there's so much that, you know, the BBC does.
Yes, and because it's such a magnificent organisation for doing all these. I mean, you don't turn on, I don't know, The World at One to listen to somebody's opinion. And it was, what did you say? It was the pandas or whatever it was. The bears.
The polar bear, you know, the fake news polar
and that
bear.
was fake news because they filmed it in a zoo. To the people who are watching it, they don't really give a toss whether it's filmed in a zoo or this. They're telling a story about polar bears or whatever it is, about how they're being damaged by the world. Who cares whether they're filmed in a zoo or whether they're filmed in a forest? You know, and people want to do that because this is so bad. You know, they say they've gone to a forest to film a bear, and they did it in a zoo.
I'm a celebrity bear, get me out of here. Anyway.
Yeah, you know, David Attenborough and the stuff he produces, and someone says, oh, well, yeah, but you know, sometimes David Attenborough has not been near for the last, I would say, 20 years. Has not been near any of that filming. He's too old for it.
Got some more calls coming in, by the way.
Thank you. You asked me the question.
Yeah,
get the long answer.
Get the long answer. Alf, as always, thanks very much. Good to hear from you. Morning.
All the best, Andreas.
Morning, Corley, alive on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, Charles. It's Peter.
Morning, Peter.
Good morning. The news, you keep saying it, the news, like the BBC is some sort of owners and keepers of the news. The BBC are no different than any other organisation that report the news. And ever since, I think the day the news changed was the Boston Marathon, the bombing. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the news broke worldwide within seconds because people have mobile phones and they're on Facebook and social media.
True.
Before any news outlet, any news outlet got hold of that, it was news. Now, news is something new. I presume that's why they call it the news. I don't know. I've never looked it up, but I'm presuming that's probably why they call it the news.
It could be because from north, east, south, west. I mean, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, or north, east, west, south.
Oh, exactly. Damn, I hate it when you school me Peter like that. But yes, well done.
Well, see, the point I'm making is the BBC get their news from other outlets because it's the CIA that report and certain things going on around the world, and they give out the news, and these news outlets then report the news, but they report their take on the news. And I've always said the BBC are biased, but I'm no different with Fox News, CNN, ITV, GB News. They're all giving their take. And what they've become now is magazine programs, and they're giving their opinions, and they have multiple people on who are not, in my opinion, they're not someone who can give that information. They're just giving their opinion. I mean, your show is an exact example. It's only us ringing in with a viewpoint or an example, and you have guests in.
Yeah.
Guests, not experts, guests.
Yeah.
Now, as you and I, as we're doing now, over the years, we've managed to speak, we've managed to talk, discuss subjects.
Yeah.
But what I don't like about your program lately is you've got certain individuals that think they're experts and they shout over people and talk over people. Now, as happened last week, I had to listen for an hour and a half of someone's opinion. When I tried to have my opinion, I was then talked down. And I received numerous texts about that, because when I said about the arrests and the of people on social media, Cookie, and I only found out afterwards, someone told me it was Cookie never gets involved unless she's really done her homework. And she'd obviously done her homework, and she stated the figures that I was given, where she got them from, where they were. So I guess they're not guess, where they came from were pretty genuine. Now, your guest at that point continues to say, no, that's not true.
Right.
That's just an opinion, right? The fact, what he should have said was, oh, I didn't realise 12,000 arrests in a year, over 30 a day. But no, because it's just opinion. And what makes your show is the difference of opinion. And that's what these so-called news outlets do now, is clickbait. The moment news breaks, all they want to do is get people to get involved, to argue and talk and debate. And it's not news. And the BBC, not just the BBC, the police, the local authorities, education, over the years have been slowly chipped away, got rid of anyone who had a certain opinion and replaced with other people with their opinion. And it's heavily biased in all those legacy places, every one of them. So that's why I never ever watch news. BBC, nothing. I don't watch it. I skim through some headlines in the morning on my phone, but I do my own research and my own due diligence. And I'm not saying it's factual, but it's people that are normally qualified to speak on that subject. Either they've been there, they know it, they've done it, and then I'll make my decision on what I think, unless it's actually written in stone. And as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that is written in stone on this planet, the only thing you cannot argue with is maths. You hear these people say all the time, oh, you don't trust the science. Look up science. The meaning of science. It's not written in stone. It's people's opinions all the time. And all we've got today is the ironic thing that people are discussing bias with their biased opinions. So on that note...
Thank you very much, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
Set in stone, but good to have you with us as always. Nice to hear from you, Peter.
Okay, all right.
952 78 4000. Going to take a quick break and then back with more Viewpoint.
Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe with
Giles Brown.
Into the last 10 minutes of this morning's Viewpoint. We're joined by Andres Gallardo.
Your favourite guest.
Yeah, exactly. It's only for the huge repeat fees. If you want to we've got 9 minutes to go. If you want to get your Viewpoint across, it can be local, national, international. These are numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Good morning, Paddy says the BBC has its own correspondents all over the world who tell the story from the country they're in. Try BBC Radio 4, thank you. Sam says, I agree. Oh, just got internet problems over here, just rejoined. What the hell's going on with cucumbers? We are in fact going to be sponsored. And by the way, thank you to Iberian Tax who sponsored this programme. But we are obviously lining up I'm obviously lining up a personal sponsorship deal with a cucumber manufacturer, steady at the back. In the word of saying. Anyway, meanwhile, as the saying goes, I agree with Alfie. Most people are just... Alfie? What's it all about? I agree with Alf. Most people are just interested in the story, but I'd like to think that many viewers are always concerned about where all that money they're paying for their TV license is going. And if they're fooled into thinking the polar bear that was filmed being born in a zoo, which probably costs a couple of grand, whereas to film in the wild may cost a couple of hundreds of thousands. Some people might be concerned about where their money is going. Meanwhile, testing opinion to a certain... right, okay. Not true. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay. Let's not forget, Richard, that Reform UK's Welsh leader Nathan Giles will be sentenced next week on 8 charges of Russian bribes. Uncle Nige said he was trustworthy. He was Giles' leader. Farage is constantly on Russia Today and blaming the West for Russia's aggression. He can't escape this. How's that for proper thumping gander? Meanwhile, the BBC don't always get their news from a third party. Sometimes they source it away directly, and are breakers of such news. Opinions should be based on facts, not hearsay. Well, that's a whole different kettle of pescado, as they say in certain parts. Science is a systemic discipline that builds and organises knowledge in the form of testable hypotheses and predictions about the universe. That's testing an opinion to ascertain a fact. My brain hurts after that. Meanwhile, looking at the poll, let's have a check up on our poll because we're into the last 6 minutes of this morning's Viewpoint. So the poll this morning, which I've been asking, do we think the BBC is institutionally biased? Yes, 42%. So more of you are coming in, more of the yeses are coming in there. No, 58%. If you wish to get your viewpoint across on that one, well, let me know. Go to the Facebook page, which is Talk Radio Europe Official. Don't forget as well, if you want to check out the web page, which is www.tre.radio. You can order most of the books that we feature in the interviews, and also listen to most of the programming in the past 7 days, as well as specially curated interviews from the vaults, as it were, as well. And then we have an app as well, which is Talk Radio Europe. Look for the logo wherever you get your apps from if you want to get your viewpoint across. These are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Because we were talking about New York.
Believe it or not, we were talking about New York.
And then we got completely. Alf came in with comments, and obviously that's a great thing.
I thought Alf was going to talk about the new mayor of New York, because he is a self-confessed socialist. And I thought that was Alf and the mayor of New York. Yes, there you go. Yeah. The mayor of New York. I mean, he's put on the table a number of things that he's intending to do in New York. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for him to implement everything that he said he's going to do. Free transport, I mean, it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? Is that doable? Just it's rhetoric here. I'm not sure that you're going to have a good quality service, well maintained, if you don't charge people for that service.
What was interesting about the vote, though, was the fact that he got large numbers of youth voters out, which people said didn't really, because he's only 34 years old himself. Yeah. And he said he's representing New York, because again, as always, it's a problem that we see locally, is the fact that many sort of immigrants or many lower paid workers have to travel for 2.5 hours to get into New York for their jobs. And the prices are pricing people out of being able to live near the centre.
The reality is that the transport system in New York, or any city anyway, it doesn't have to be New York, is expensive to run. The maintenance is very, very expensive, so you have to have a stream of income to be able to support that service, that infrastructure. Yeah. And if you offer it for free to everyone, the question is, will he be able to maintain the service, the quality of the service, and the maintenance of the lines and everything else, to be able to give a satisfactory service? That's the question. So the idea is very nice. Yes, free transport for everyone. Yeah. I would vote for that. But the reality then now sinks in. Is that viable? That is the question that requires an answer. And other things that he said is about, the housing in New York. New York is overpopulated. New York is more than Manhattan, so you've got different areas there and different needs of accommodation and everything else. But it is, in essence, a very capitalist city, as it is the country. And the forces of supply and demand is that wants to dictate the prices, and the amount of demand you get in New York, will it warrant a reduce in rentals in the city? You've got high demand and limited supply, unless you go further and further afield, which is what you just mentioned, people having to live very far away from the city to then go to work in the city. So there is a number of structural problems that you can say you're going to solve them, but they are of enormous difficulty to be able to solve. And just by announcing it doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And I fear that in 2, 3, maybe 4 years' time, when we see the balance of what this mayor has achieved in New York, might not be as exciting as it is now that he's just won the election. But only time will tell.
And also, it brings up the prospect, because, President Trump has not been backwards in putting the National Guard on the streets where he feels something is in chaos. He put the National Guard on the streets in Los Angeles, he put them in Chicago, he put them in Portland. I mean, he might just go, right, I'm blocking all sorts of, federal funding from New York and try and I mean, he could do that, or he could say, I tell you what, just let him run it, and then we can go. That's how bad socialism. That's the Democrats. That's so. I'm the alternative to that. What do you want to have a New York in shambles, or this is what is because this is if you vote Democrat, you will get communism by the back door.
But if you're a true servant of your people, and that's why you're in politics, he won't let.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no, I know. So naive to think that. But there has got to be an element where the different administrations complement each other. Yeah. And I feel that the strategy of Trump is to let them sink on their own, so we can say to prove that you see that doesn't work. I'm the man for the future, we play into his hands again. Like the BBC's done with his Panorama program, we play into his hands, He's been telling everyone, fake news is out there, don't believe anything you see, and then the BBC falls in the same sack and does just that. With the Mayor of New York, I think the strategy will be, okay, I don't think he can deliver what he's promised during the election campaign, and this is going to be a way of proving that system doesn't work and mine does.
Andreas, those bongos mean we're out of time. I know indeed.
But thank you very much. Just to say that it's very nice your Zelensky outfit.
Thank you very much. Poll of polls. Do you think the BBC is institutionally biased? 45% say yes. 55% say no. Thanks to you all for your viewpoint, and to Claudia Toro and Andres Gallardo.
Thank you very much, Giles.
Stephen Ritson, Cucumber Free, is up next.
The views expressed on Viewpoint by invited studio guests and callers do not constitute an opinion endorsed in any way by Talk Radio Europe.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this program, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit TRE.radio.